Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Jim, and in this video we're going to dive into how to use basic mannequins. We're going to learn how to create and draw them, and we're going to learn how they can help you design your own comics or poster art way faster and save you a lot of valuable time. We're also going to use a fun 2-page comic script. There's a link in the description, and we'll learn how to turn practice into pure fun and save you lots of learning time in the process. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a bunch of mannequin designs, and I've got one right here. This is probably one of the most basic yet still useful mannequins, and I'm going to show you a few more that I've seen and used and learned along the way. Here's one I learned from a Marvel comic artist. Here's a similar one that I got out of a book, and here's a few that I've designed on my own. Okay, and one of the main ideas is to get the 3 volumes, the head, the chest, and the hips, the pelvic area. Okay, here's another variation that I do with a heart for the hips. And here's another variation I do with just a V for the hips and this shape of chest. I call it the shark mouth. Just imagine putting an eye here and some teeth. And then you have the shark mouth. Hey guys, I just couldn't resist putting in this little animation to show you what I mean when I say the shark mouth to represent the chest area. The other thing you want to probably get good at is using this manga boat for the head. I like having that on top. Here's a male and female mannequin that I developed a long time ago. It's 2D and it works really well for a lot of uses, and also it's adaptable to turn into like 3D shapes. So when you want to turn your character and they're not facing front on, this is a really good shape to use. Okay, and let's look at a few that I've done recently. Here's another one that I've done with more of a shark mouth chest. Okay, and then just the simple underwear for the hips. Okay, and I like doing this, drawing the hip bone and the greater trochanter. That's a really useful little tip for adding the legs on. The other thing for the arms or the hands is just to draw this little shape here, because you can add the thumb pretty easily to it, and then you can just add the fingers. So I like that shape. Sometimes I'll draw it square, and if I'm in a hurry I just draw a triangle, but this is probably more useful to get used to because you can turn it and you can add the thumb and then you can add the fingers, and it works really well. The other thing down here is I've drawn in the shin bone, which curves like this, and then the inside ankle is high. This is the tibia bone on the outside of your leg, and this the outside ankle bone is low, so they slant like that. So there's another useful version. Oh, and it took me a minute to draw that. So yeah, once you get comfortable doing these things, you can do them super quick. Here's one I did just using a square and some kind of modified chest thing here, the bathing suit and the hip bones. And here I'm showing that the arm bones are crossed over. The elbow that you're used to, you know, your big old elbow, that goes to the pinky side of the hand, and then the radius is the one on top that crosses over when your hand is face down like that. So I showed the 2 bones here, showed the 2 leg bones there. Here's some things I did for this video. So, you know, just the basic, you know, stick figure we learn when we're super young, and then we get advanced and we add some shoulders and a hip line. And then you can add the 3 volumes here. There's no knees or anything yet, but that's the next step. 3 volumes, add the knees. Why is this even something we should talk about? Because the mannequin is just like a tool. It's like a screwdriver or a hammer. It's not the full solution, but it's definitely, you know, part of your tool kit. You need to know how to make them, and it'll come back and help you again and again and again. Okay, sometimes you need advanced mannequins, sometimes you just need super simple ones, and they're not going to solve all your problems, but they are an important part of your drawing tool set. It depends on what you're doing and what you're creating and what your drawing abilities are as to which version you're going to want to use. Okay, once you can do something like this, you should start turning shapes into volumes so they look 3D. So here's a circle, but here's, you know, a ball or a sphere, okay? Here's the shape turned edgewise, and here a sphere, we turned it up this time. So if you draw the contour lines on it, see how this X is here? Well, now we've moved it up here. Flat piece of paper, turn the paper so it's more facing towards us, and that's still basic 2D shapes, but you know, you need to learn in time how to move volumes, so turn them into cubes, squares, and things like that. Let's say we take this one here, and now we're going to turn it a little bit on its side, so we get to see a little bit of the side. And here's where the next step comes in, is you need to be able to turn this into a 3D volume. Okay, and you know, once you are familiar with this, you can start taking these mannequins and posing them, and we're going to talk more about that. Here we go. So now we've got our 2D mannequin, and here's a female. So the basic shape for the male chest is going to be like this. I mean, obviously, if you got a real young child, you could just do a square, a rectangle for the chest. But that's what I use for a male, and then there's two versions I use for a female. You can just do this, okay, and the hips like that. Another version I use is to do this, okay, and like that. And also I'll add in the underwear here. I'll add in the underwear to these chest, torso things. Okay, so female, you can add that in like that, and then for another version of the female torso, you can do that. Okay, so simple, easy shapes that are very useful. And then you can take that shape and see what I've done here. I've taken that shape and I've put some 3D-ness, added some volume to it. Okay, and the shape changes slightly depending on, you know, how the character is facing. Okay, however, it's still that basic shape, just turned a little sideways. We could add some volume on here like this. Pretty simple like that. Okay, so turning your basic mannequins into 3D shapes. Let's do the male one here. Let's turn it the other way so we can do this, and if we're turning it this way, then I'm going to straighten out this line a little bit. So this one's, you know, slanted more, and this one's straighter, and then make it 3D like that. So yeah, that's the next step. The other thing is that basically I always do a 6-area mannequin. I do the head and neck as one area, the chest is area 2, bottom of the ribs to the bottom of the hips is area 3, and then I basically just cut the legs portion of the body in half. And then if this is halfway from the hips to the bottom of the feet, I just put the knees above halfway, and it works out really nicely. Okay, so everything I've showed you in this video is based on a 6-area style body. Okay, and then if you want to get it more accurate and perfect, you can just, you know, get your ruler out, just draw a center line. I drew each area 1 inch apart here, 1, 2, 3 inches, and then I cut the bottom section in half. So if this is 3 inches, this would be at 1.5 inches, and that's where the knees would go, just above that line there. So if you need to do that, do it, you know, and over time you'll just be able to do things like this freehand. So if we start at the top, go down to the bottom, try to make a rectangle with even sides, so that this side is about the same as this, okay? And we need to find halfway, so we're basically just going to draw a line that goes from corner to corner. And then we find halfway, approximately here. I think that's a little longer, we'll do that. Okay, now to find the 3 areas of this line here, what we're going to do is we are going to draw from here to here, and from here to here. There's the halfway point right there. But anyway, now what we do is we draw from this corner over to this corner. And that's going to give us where these lines cross right here. That's going to give us our thirds in this section, 1, 2, 3. And then this will be the head and the neck, or we can do the boat. Okay. And then this area here will be the chest cavity. Down here will be the hips, the bathing suit, and if we cut this bottom part in half, which we could do just by doing this and finding halfway, then we know the knees are above here, and then down to the feet. And then we know our proportions are pretty accurate. Elbows are always at the chest, bottom of the chest. Wrists are right here where the legs join together, and then we can just make whatever hand shape we want. So that's how to divide rectangles and everything into thirds. So with a little practice, you can get a lot of mileage out of these mannequins. And again, you can use as sophisticated a mannequin as you want, or as simple a mannequin as you want. Here's how you can use them to practice posing your characters: walking, standing, crossing their arms. Oh my goodness. What? You know, different poses. I guess I already had that one here. You know, if you're having trouble making a character sit down, just do easy versions until you get the pose you want. So I was very happy to find this book, and it kind of kick-started me into using mannequins for posing. Running, jumping, fighting, punching, kicking, flying, whatever you can think of. Here's another version of a mannequin that you can use. So whatever style you want, whatever information you can find for yourself, and whatever abilities you have, just start using mannequins, you know, that work for you. And they are going to lead you into more advanced things. Like, you know, here's my male and female mannequin, okay? And then here we are turning the male figure, okay? Front view, you know, on the right side, on the left side. And then here's basically the female, okay? Like that. More practice. Okay, moving them. You know, sometimes just doing a straight mannequin and then just having them wave an arm is enough, or try turning them sideways to take a step. You know, and then skinning them, putting the volumes on. Okay, here's one I did, and I just add a simple top and a dress to it, and then I, you know, put the volume of the arm on this and the legs. So just practice adding slowly. Again, as you are able to. Okay, there's a running pose. Okay, there's a little Archie panel that I did. I wanted to practice it. I really like this one here. And, you know, especially when you have multiple characters in a panel, just planning them out with a simple mannequin is really helpful. And then, of course, you can just do random pose sketches. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but there's the hips, there's the knee. So I did the mannequin, and then I just drew, I call it skinning them when I put on the volumes of the arms and all that. And here's a young dude running. And this is quite an old sketch I did back in 2020, but I still like it. And I did do some mannequins underneath, but I kind of erased all of it now, so you don't see it very well. But eventually all that stuff, you know, depending on what style of drawing you like to do, you know, you can start skinning them and adding as much musculature and anatomy as you see fit. Okay. And I have a long form video on drawing anatomy that you can find on my channel, and it culminates in being able to do the whole front anatomy of the body. So that's you know, ultimately where you can take your mannequins, but that's not important right now. But whether you're using a simple mannequin or an advanced one, eventually you want to be able to pose your characters and make a nice piece of finished art with it. And then lastly, you know, I put in the description a script for a little 2-page comic, okay? And it's called The Cookie Stand Crisis. And basically, it's a 2-page story where a girl is selling cookies, okay? And somebody steals her cookie money. She calls for help, and then of course, who comes to the rescue? Her friend Matt, who just happens to be a superhero. He's chasing after the bad guy, and then he can't get through all the people because there's too many people in the park, so he goes into flying mode, and then he jumps up into the air and he starts following the thief into a tent, and then he confronts him and lifts up a big box and threatens to smash him if he doesn't give back the money. But it ends up being just a young kid who's struggling in life and just needed some money for some food. So they let the police and the child services take care of him. So it's not a brutal ending like that. So anyway, and it just gives you a chance to tell a little story. Of course you can modify it, change the story, do whatever you want. But I think this is the most important thing, you know, when you want to practice and you don't know what to draw, if you have a story that you've wanted to tell, then that's what you work on, okay? And you can see here, here are the layouts. Okay, the first scene where she's selling cookies, and then boom, the thief is running away. And then, you know, that forces you to learn how to do a lot of things. Multiple characters, a background scene, and just a little tip, using Archie comics for scenes like this is wonderful. Okay, and then you have to decide, well, what am I going to do in the next scene? How am I going to place the characters? You know, you've got a lot of work to do, but if you're just using stick figures and basic mannequins, you can get a lot of the storytelling done really quick and plan out your panels. And here there's too many people, and I got stuck here, so I decided I would do that on another page. And then he leaps into the air to start flying, and here he is here. I don't know if you can see this one. He's flying, and we have this down view. Here's the thief, you know, but it's all stick figures, but it's telling the story. And then he does a power landing, and then he goes inside the tent, lifts up the box, reveals the young lad, and you know, scares him. Give me the money or I'll drop the box. And so this is a real fun way to learn how to draw and pose your characters. And along the way, you know, anytime you need reference, just go get it. I wanted a picture of a police officer dealing with a young offender, and you know, but having some compassion. That was kind of the idea. So I found this picture, and then I just modified it for my story. And here's the power landing. Does that look familiar? Iron Man-ish. And now here, this one here is the, see here, it's a little hard to see maybe on this camera here, but there's the guy, and this is what he's looking like, okay? And he's flying and looking down at the thief running into a tent to hide. And then I tried to draw a more advanced, too many people right here. You know, I kind of got stuck, and so I took my time and drew in a bunch of people and just decided how I was going to do things. And here we go. And then I did some more expressions and all that kind of stuff. Here's the one I finally ended up on for the scene where there's too many people and he decides he's got to get flying. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in there. And I guess this is the only one I skinned. But partial skinning, I used that female shape there, but I modified it because, you know, if this is the female shape here, that, you know, my basic female shape like that, what I did to turn it was I flattened this side out and then just used this shape. So again, by having a story to tell, It gives you problems and it forces you to solve problems, and that's how you're going to learn how to draw. Sitting there practicing anatomy over and over and over, I mean, it's good and sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it's just daunting. It's like, oh, why am I doing this? But if you have a story to tell, drawing is just a lot more fun. Okay, so I hope that helps you. And yeah, so even for me, you know, when I did this cover, I used Mannequins to plan it out. You know, in quick sketching like that, even stuff like this, and using basic Mannequins to plan things out can really be a help. There's that sketch largified, and I did plan it out with a Mannequin and then just erased all those lines and did the finished sketch. So anyway, I hope that helps you. I think using Mannequins is genius, not useless, and depending on where you are, you'll find all kinds of benefits for it. All right, that's it for this video, and we